Have you ever stood in front of a shelf of wine bottles and had absolutely no idea what to pick? Hundreds of labels, dozens of grape names, different countries, different prices, and somehow everyone else seems to know exactly what they are doing. But here's the truth: wine isn't complicated. Most people were just never taught the basics, and in the next few minutes I'm going to show you exactly how wine works. So the next time you buy a bottle, you'll know exactly what you're looking for, and maybe even impress a few people along the way. Let's start with the simplest truth about wine. Wine is just fermented grape juice. That's it. If a bottle is labeled as wine, it means it was made entirely from grapes. But wine grapes are very different from the table grapes, the ones you snack on. They are smaller, they have thicker skins, and they contain seeds. And those skins and seeds are where a lot of the wine's flavor comes from. Another important thing about grapes: once they are picked, they stop ripening, which means winemaking only happens once a year. And that's what the vintage on a wine bottle means. It simply tells you the year the grapes were harvested. One of the biggest factors that affects how wine tastes is where the grapes are grown. Warmer regions produce riper grapes. That usually means wines that are bolder, richer, and more fruit-forward. Grapes like Shiraz or Cabernet Sauvignon thrive in these climates. But cooler regions tell a completely different story. In places like Champagne in France, the grapes develop less sugar. That results in wines that are lighter, crisper, and more acidic. This is why two wines made from the same grape can taste completely different. It all depends on where the grapes were grown. When you start exploring wine, you'll hear a lot of grape names: Merlot, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, Shiraz, Pinotage. And yes, it can feel like a lot. But here's the secret: you don't need to memorize everything. Just focus on the grapes or wine you enjoy drinking. Over time, you'll naturally recognize more of them. Now let's talk about something you'll often hear about in red wine: tannins. Tannins are natural compounds found in grape skins, seeds, and stems. They create that dry feeling in your mouth when you drink certain wines. You might notice it especially with bold reds. Too much tannin can make wine taste bitter or harsh. But when balanced properly, tannins add structure and complexity. A great example of a tannic wine is Cabernet Sauvignon. It's bold, structured, and incredibly popular. In fact, it's the most widely planted wine grape in the world. Red wines can range from light and delicate to dark and powerful. Let's break it down. Light-bodied reds like Pinot Noir are softer and more delicate. They often have flavors of cherry, raspberry, and floral notes. They are also fantastic with food. Medium-bodied reds like Merlot offer more fruit flavors like plum and red berries. And then you have full-bodied reds. These wines are bigger, richer, and more intense. Think Cabernet Sauvignon or Shiraz. Most red wines are also dry, meaning they aren't sweet. The fruit flavors you taste usually come from the climate where the grapes were grown. Cooler climates produce tart, fresh fruit flavors. Warmer climates produce riper, richer fruit notes. Sparkling wine is made a little differently. It goes through two fermentations. The first fermentation creates the alcohol. The second fermentation creates the bubbles. Sparkling wines can range from very dry to quite sweet. You might see terms like brut or demi-sec on the label. And then there's champagne. Champagne is a protected name. It can only be called champagne if it's made in the Champagne region of France. White wines also come in different styles. Light-bodied white wines are fresh and crisp. They often have flavors of citrus, green apple and lime. These wines are usually aged in stainless steel tanks, which helps preserve their fresh taste. Then there are full-bodied white wines. These wines are richer and creamier. A perfect example is Chardonnay. But the buttery flavor people associate with Chardonnay doesn't actually come from the grape. It comes from aging the wine in oak barrels. Oak aging gives wine richer textures and more complex flavors. Finally, there are dessert wines. These wines range from lightly sweet to very rich and sugary. Some wines are also fortified. This means a spirit like brandy is added during production. A famous example is port wine. Before we finish, here's one simple tip that can instantly improve your wine experience. Always smell the wine before you taste it. Your sense of smell plays a huge role in how you experience flavor. So swirl the glass, take a moment to smell, and then take your first sip. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!